Howdy folks, and welcome to the Hillbilly Kitchen. Today we're going to be making Aunt Pork's mayonnaise rolls. Now, don't cut the video off yet because you hear mayonnaise rolls. Mayonnaise is just basically oil, eggs, and vinegar. And we've already talked about what vinegar does in your bacon on several of these videos. So mayonnaise rolls are really good and they don't taste like mayonnaise. And not only are they really good, but these are a super quick roll. Now, if you've made yeast rolls, you know sometimes they come out, sometimes they don't. And you also know that you have to have at least 4 hours, maybe even overnight, to make a really good yeast roll. And we've all had those occasions where you got folks over visiting and next thing you know it's dinner time. And you go in the kitchen and you realize the only kind of bread you got to serve with dinner is half a loaf of stale sandwich bread, and that's no good when you got company. So Aunt Pork's mayonnaise rolls are going to save the day. You can make them out of stuff everybody has in their kitchen, and it takes like 2 minutes to mix them or less, and 15 minutes to bake them. So I have 1 cup of self-rising flour, and you can double this recipe if you need to. It's going to make 6 rolls, but doubling it's no problem. And if you only have all-purpose flour, you want 1 cup of all-purpose flour, half a tablespoon of baking powder, and 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And then you'll have basically self-rising flour. We've got 3 tablespoons of mayonnaise because these are mayonnaise rolls. And we have a teaspoon of sugar because dinner rolls are supposed to be a little bit sweet. And we've got 1/2 cup of milk. Now, like I said, these are quick and simple, so dump everything into your bowl. You don't have to mix these until they are perfectly smooth. You just have to mix them up until they're pretty smooth. You don't want huge lumps, but you don't have to blend them until they look like crepe batter either. Just give them a stir with a spoon. Now, unless you're like me and you slop stuff everywhere, this is pretty much a no mess recipe. Now, the dough is pretty moist and pretty runny, so you're not going to want to roll this out and form it into rolls. And not only that, rolling it out and forming it into rolls is going to take a lot more time if you try to do that. And the purpose for this is to get you some dinner rolls quick, so you don't have to serve that half loaf of stale bread. You're going to bake these in a muffin tin, and you do want to grease your muffin tins. You can take a little oil on a paper towel and wipe it around in there, or you can spray them with some non-stick stuff. And I got for a long time where I didn't use any of the spray because I don't really trust it. But I've gotten lazy and went back to it. And all you're going to do is divide this evenly among your 6 muffin trays. Or muffin cups. And like I said, this recipe is super simple to double. You could even cut it in half if you're eating alone or if there's just 2 of you, and just make 3 rolls. It wouldn't be hard at all to cut this recipe in half. Well, this batch is going to make 5 rolls. It really should make 6 muffin sized rolls. You don't want to fill them but about halfway full, so I didn't do a very good job dividing mine. Now, here is another tip. Any kind of quick bread that you make, whether it's these rolls, biscuits, pancakes, muffins, anything like that, let it sit for just a minute before you put it in the oven. Now, if this is the only thing you're making in the oven, you want to put them in a preheated 425 degree oven, and you're going to bake them for 15 minutes. If you just let them sit while the oven's preheating, that should be plenty of time. But give them about 15 minutes if you've got 15 minutes. If you don't, of course, you can stick them in the oven just like this. But what that's going to do is it's going to allow them to pre-rise before you put them in the oven. And it's going to make them much lighter and much fluffier. If you have something that you do that you want to get better at, teach somebody else how to do it. Because when you start teaching somebody else how to do something, then you have to break it down so that you really understand how to do it. You can't explain it to somebody else unless you really understand it. And once you understand the process that you're teaching, you're much better at it yourself. Some of you that have been watching this for a while, you know that Brett and I ran a karate school with our kids for like 10 years in town, and certainly a lot of the local people know that. And when we were teaching karate, once you got to a certain level, you had to teach other people what you knew. And that actually helped you to learn it and remember it better. And this concept of teaching other people, sharing your knowledge, it applies to everything, especially faith. And that's something that I realized, it was like one of those moments of clarity that God gives you. I was answering comments, and somebody was talking about how their faith just, they were struggling with it. They were struggling to, it wasn't what it used to be. If you want your faith to be really strong, and if you want your understanding and knowledge of God to grow, and maybe your security and your salvation, share your faith with somebody else. Because when you share it, when you talk about it, when you explain it to somebody else, you really understand it better yourself. And when you understand God and you get to know God better, of course your faith is going to grow. So if you are in need of a faith boost, share your faith with somebody else. So anyway, now we know how to get these to pre-rise. You want to preheat your oven to 425, and this only takes 15 minutes to bake these. They'll definitely be done inside in 15 minutes, but the brown on top really makes them look better and makes them present better. And since you're doing a quick bread, you definitely want it to look as good as possible. Now in 15 minutes, when you take them out of the oven, they're going to be kind of crackly on the top and all nice and brown like this. And you can see how much these rose up. These muffin cups were only about halfway full, and they really rose up high. You want to let them cool for just a minute, not too long. And you can just dump them right out of your muffin pan. They don't really stick because there's nothing sticky in them. You know, it's not like a muffin that's loaded with sugar. Because they only had that teaspoon of sugar in them, they won't really stick. They're not going to come out quite that quick, but just let them sit. Give them, I don't know, 2 or 3 minutes. It doesn't take long, and they'll flip right out of there. And you've got a really fluffy roll. This really isn't necessary, but it does take them. There we go. See, straight out of the oven, they'll come out pretty easy. But look at how soft this is, even on the bottom. It's a really soft, light roll. And like I said, they don't taste like mayonnaise at all, but they really are good. Give them a try. They're so easy. The next time you need a roll quick to go with your dinner, these are great. And you can top them with a little butter while they're hot, or just put a little butter on the table and serve them. And see how good they come out? It's just been a minute. Just dump right out there. But that's all there is to making a really quick, really easy roll to go with your dinner. And it'll impress people that you can pull together a dinner with bread that quick.
Titus chapter 2 talks about how the older women are to teach the younger women. And in verse 4 it says that they may teach the young women to be sober, to love their husbands, to love their children. I am certainly grateful to God for the older women in my life who taught me to love my family.
Thank y'all so much for joining us in the Hillbilly Kitchen. If you haven't already, please click like and subscribe before you leave. And until next time, remember to put God first.